Thanks for tuning in to the Boiled Sports Podcast Network. Boiled Sports, BS all the time.
And then you go back and you watch your film. To make
Oh,
sure.
yeah. You got to watch the tape.
Gotta watch the tape.
Got to watch the tape, because otherwise, what are we doing?
That's what Painter said in that Field of 68 interview.
I haven't seen that.
Dude, you got to watch it. It's really good. I think you'd be hosting. I think it's a basketball beat.
No, I'm not. It doesn't matter. I think we can do either way.
Do you have people at work refer you to you by your middle name? Do you want to go or me? It's your call, really.
Welcome. Whoa. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Purdue basketball beat. Along with me is your usual pilot, Boiler Dowd. Hello, Boiler Dowd. Are we wearing the same shirt?
No, this is a family thing.
Okay, got it. It
homemade.
Looks,
but man, you're bringing it with it's my favorite Martin Vintage piece
from
right
martinvintage.com called Boiled for X% off. I'm not entirely sure what the discount
is. 15 now.
15% off.
Literally, they were affected by
the best. Yeah.
All the garbage that happened last year.
So we will support our people. So 15% off, Boiled at checkout. You can get this very comfy sweatshirt. But anyway,
you look sharp.
Hello. How is everybody doing?
Good on this end, with the exception of what we lost. What happened last night? How about you?
Yeah. I mean, it was a weird one. Maryland is always a weird game. I always come away not impressed with Mark Turgeon.
Same.
I don't know how long he's been. I feel like he's been the coach for over a decade now, and I don't have any idea what his teams do. I don't have any idea what his specialty is other than recruiting DC, the DC area, and that's about it. Like I don't know.
He's good at getting those guys in there. And the thing that I would say. And I think this is kind of, it's not different than IU right now, right? That really Archie Miller's thing that defines him is his ability to get talent at the door. Maryland generally has very, very good size top to bottom, right? I mean, and this is the funny thing. You look at
athleticism too. Yeah, usually size and athleticism.
Yeah, but they looked, to me, they look bigger. They weren't as long and quick as they've been in some seasons, right? I think his ideal teams, he had 2 or 3 NBA players, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
He had the real tall white guy with the floppy hair that annoyed the hell out of me.
Sure.
Yeah. That I really don't remember his name.
My
son remembered it right away.
Sure.
But he had like a bunch of guys who were like 6'9", 6'10", and had 7-foot wingspans, right? Now he's got guys that are probably looks like 6'8", but they're bigger. They're stronger. They're put together a little bit more. And that was a big storyline for me last night. I was watching a couple things. A couple guys struggle on defense anyway, but Thompson specifically was struggling, right? He had a hard time staying in front of his guy. Whenever they decided to body him up, he was in big trouble. But it seems like Purdue was so worried to get that physical contact, right, and to make sure they weren't getting pounded in the lane, that they left the 3 open over and over and over and over.
It was that switch. It was that late switch. So, Purdue had, 2-man game going kind of in the middle of the first half, which was among the least entertaining halves of basketball I've ever watched in my entire life. That
you remarked about that. That was
horrendous. I had nothing to say after the first half. It was awful. I think it was something like 7 minutes. The last 7 minutes, both teams scored 9 points total. Like it was like 3 field goals. Just awful.
Yeah. And it wasn't because they weren't getting looks either, right? There were shots being put up.
That's the thing. It's like it looked like a rec league. It looked like a bad rec league game. And it's like I have nothing for this. Right. But the 2-man game with Ivy and Trevion, who are it seems like Purdue's best players this year, along with Sasha, I suppose, are that was going early, and that got Purdue going late when they, I think, finally hit their stride. And they went away from that. They kind of got spooked by it. And the thing that experience teaches you, Maryland's guards are junior. One is a junior, Ayala is a junior, and the other guy is a senior. Mm-hmm. And all they did, the other guy's a little stockier.
Yeah.
All they did was that 2-man game, like for 4 minutes. And that was enough. And they hit these 3-pointers at the end. And even the last time Purdue played Maryland, it came down to free throws at the end. Right. And so, Maryland is, I think not as good of a team as Purdue, but the gap isn't that far. Just like the gap between, a top 20 and a top 30 or 40 team isn't that big. The gap between, Purdue, which is probably, I think, correctly somewhere in the mid-20s, and Maryland, which is in the low, also receiving votes, I think in KenPom, they're somewhere in the 30s, they're 40 basically.
Yeah, that kind of surprised me. That's
about
were that low. I thought they'd be like right by Purdue. And Purdue's 25th or something like that right now?
Yeah, and they were favored. I mean, they came into it. KenPom had them as a 1-point favorite. Vegas had them as a 2.5-point favorite. They ended up winning by 1. I mean, people are calling it an upset because of that number in front of them. But again, I think the gap between a lot of these teams isn't as big. What's
their conference record right now?
Right now it is 4-7.
Okay, so I think that's another rub that people see that right away. Even but the weird thing is, if you really look at their schedule, the teams they've beaten, it's pretty incredible.
It's not bad. Like, this is a really good. I think they're actually in KenPom. They are, they had a win, a close win against Illinois. They had a close win against Wisconsin. They just beat Minnesota, which seems to be easier and easier to do. Do you think they're hitting a wall, or do you think that people have figured them out? Because
who we
talking about?
Minnesota.
Oh yeah, I think I don't know if they're that good. It's a very similar thing to Turgeon, which is I don't know what they do as a program. I know Carr is really good,
right?
And Hunter did a great job when Purdue played him earlier this week.
But it wasn't like he just did a good job. He made him disappear.
Entirely.
That was the thing that was crazy. You wouldn't, if you were an untrained, not a basketball fan, and you turned that game on, you would have no idea who the star on that team was.
Yeah. I mean, and that meanwhile, Purdue was, on, or specifically, Newman was on fire in the second half. And
so can I pick up something with you said earlier? And I wanted to talk to Michael about this too. And I would love to have maybe a forum of the three of us, or Jay involved as well, because
I'm not used to coffee during, this is coffee.
It's very weird.
And
I've just
bourbon, I swear.
And I've just got water.
That's crazy. You're just hydrating.
Weird. It's like really
like a healthy person.
Doesn't
this is what I've learned when I've been, as I get older. This is what I learned. I feel like I've been dehydrated for 99% of my life. Just like always.
According to every doctor, right? It's so much water you're supposed to drink. And that's why I drink this mega thing. Like, I feel like there's a lot of housewives that carry around these things in my area.
Hey man, all you need is a little carabiner that attached to your belt.
Exactly.
You look great,
man. I'm with you. I've always been dehydrated, but I've made a conscious effort to drink a lot of water during the day. So this is my goal. I get made fun of because this is like a baby bottle.
Your skin looks great. It hydrates your skin.
It's great. The white in the beard gets accentuated by that hydration.
Yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
Yeah. But okay. So Michael and I started this discussion, and you kind of jumped off of it just a second ago. Okay. Why do you hate Brandon Newman?
I hate him. No. He had this stretch. I love it when he is, early in the game, he was in gunner mode. He wasn't hesitating. I love that.
Yeah.
He is not an 80% 3-point shooter like most players are. So what happened, it seemed like tonight, was that it kind of regressed back to, the mean. If you are
though. What, he's 42, 43?
Oh yeah. So then
very good.
But the problem is he had a stretch at the end of the half where it was an awful missed 3. Like, I don't think it hit much. If it hit
Wheeler
anything,
had a complete air ball.
Wheeler, we'll talk about Wheeler later.
But they were right in succession, weren't they?
Yes,
very close to each other.
And it was at the end of the half. The offense was kind of flailing at that point. And so he had a badly missed 3, 2 turnovers, which are those drive and kick, but you have no plan as to where to kick. See, what makes people like LeBron,
because he gets up.
What makes people like LeBron perfect is that he does not drive without knowing the exact geometry of the floor. And the problem is when you watch that, you think it's just as easy as, hey, he decides when he's in the air. And that's what we were doing way too many times yesterday, which is, I think Purdue had something like 11 turnovers at the half.
Yes, that's right.
To Maryland's, I think 4 or 5, and almost all of them were that drive and kick to nowhere. Mm-hmm. And you can't be looking around when you're in midair under the under the basket. And so he did that twice and then missed another 3. Yeah. And I think he didn't have it going earlier. And I think that just, he still got 9 minutes in the second half, but I think that just kind of, turned his green light off.
It did more than, but this is the thing that I'm so bothered by. And I said to you guys off of here that it seems like, and I think it's a pretty good quote, so I'm going to quote myself.
Okay, of course.
Painter gave Brandon Newman the Carson Edwards treatment when Edwards was a freshman. Mm-hmm. Painter gave Ivy the Carson Edwards treatment when he was a junior. Mm-hmm. Right. And you look at the numbers. Newman was 1 for 7 shooting. Bad, obviously. Mm-hmm. And Ivy was 5 for 13. Mm-hmm. Not good either. And especially I got to tell you, though, there's some things that I saw yesterday from Ivy that I thought we wouldn't see till next year.
Yeah.
His decision-making all of a sudden got better. He got double teamed one time, pulled back, waited for the double team, and then dumped it into Travion, right? I think that maybe that was the dunk that I thought ended the game. I thought Purdue had won it right then.
They should have, because that was something like, up 5 with 3 minutes left to play.
But they got up 5 or up 7 times.
Yeah, I think it was actually, that was the up 7 with about 3 minutes, and then they were up 5 with about a minute and a half. That should have been.
Did you light your cigar at that point?
Yeah, it was great. Actually, it really, you're always looking for that bucket, a stop in a bucket after 5. Right. If you're Purdue, you're always looking for that. But to me, that's the difference. The Carson tree. So I think the lesson Painter learned from Carson is what he's giving to Ivy, and it has nothing. So both of them are great players. I think Ivy and Newman, they are great players now. They will be even greater players later in their career.
No doubt.
But Newman is a shooter, is kind of a pure shooter, and
Ivy's a scorer.
And exactly, Ivy is a creator.
Yeah.
Right. And
that move where he came in and the guy was set up for the charge and he slid in. Then he did something. You saw, watch his legs in air. He moves himself. I was like, whoa,
it's like too many NBA references here, but like Derrick Rose back in the day or John Morant now.
Yeah.
It's you're almost afraid because he hits the ground so much and he hits the ground violently and he always springs back up. But it's like,
yesterday he kept grabbing his arm, right?
I know, and the wrist, because the same thing, he was holding the wrist earlier in the week too. And that's a little scary. I don't need Jaden Ivey, my favorite player. On this team.
let's you give me there's something to jump off on there. I was on Instagram yesterday, 2 days ago, and Ivy posted something of himself, which I think is hilarious. All these guys, they always say something like, "You don't even know me yet." That stuff. I love that.
It's like psyching himself up. Yeah.
Right. It's great. And then it was funny. Wheeler was the first comment, "Go to bed. It's late," because it was after they had flown in. I just, you see the humanness of them. I love it. And then, so I've always, I don't know if I've done it with you, but with my son, I always compare Ivy to a very, very poor man's John Morant. Okay. And I didn't know all the other things happening. And then the next comment was John Morant. Mm-hmm. And I was like, whoa, what just happened? It blew my mind. Yeah. And then was his mom saying 2 of my favorites. And I said,
yeah.
And I was like, and I said, what happened there? And he said, oh, his mom used to coach him
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So that's why. So he probably is fashioning his game and his look and his persona after, because he always liked Ja. That's my guess, right?
And he's a star. I mean, like, it's Ja Morant is a star and
legit.
And Ivy has that potential. And the problem is he's not a point guard yet. He has everything. He's still a lump of clay. So he's still got so much to do. So the lesson,
you think he's a point guard though? You think he's going to be a point guard for Purdue?
I think no. I think he's a pro.
Yeah,
and I think he's a point guard at the NBA level.
Yeah.
And so I think the best development way to do it. So the reason that that Morant and players like Steph take the point guard route is because they are the lead guard on a team where they're the lead guard on the team where they're the entire team. I mean, the Murray State team had some good players on it, but it was Morant, Davidson.
They had a fat guy, which I always love a fat guy.
Oh, it's just biscuit eaters. The biscuit eaters are the best.
They're the best.
But at Purdue, it's going to be a little more difficult, especially next year. Next year is where the roster glut kind of gets a little crazy because Purdue legitimately has 11 really good players that could be in the rotation, that will be in the rotation. And someone is going to get cannibalized there. I'm afraid it's going to be Thompson. I'm afraid it's going to be Wheeler, but we will see. And it kind of also building a roster like that, where players like each other, reduces the likelihood of a ton of transfers, which is I can't see too many of this core transferring to go get more playing time, because it seems like they genuinely love playing with each other, which is something we didn't see last year, and it was something that made last year not fun to watch either. But for Ivy,
the chemistry problem was major last year.
But for Ivy, putting the ball in his hands and letting him create, it's very similar to, at this point, to the way Hunter kind of runs the floor, which is neither of them are point guards, but both of them can kind of slash to space with or without the ball. And that's kind of the problem. There is no kind of floor general, which is what we're used to. Right now, there's no Carson creator because Ivy is not quite there yet.
Yep.
And then especially with Sasha out, I mean, the floor geometry, the only way to space the floor with Sasha out is I think playmaking through Trevion and slashes, right?
I think Newman's ability to do multiple things is important. The funny thing is, so like, if you watch the post-game comments after the Minnesota game from Painter about Newman, he said, go to your strength, shoot the ball, pump fake, get him off the ground, take the shot. Instead, Newman knows he's a good free throw shooter, so he's trying to get to the rack, and he can't finish there. The funny thing is he is so close to being able to finish too. To me, he looks like he's 5 pounds away from being able to finish, like just absorb a little more contact, right? Because the ball does like this, doo-doo.
Yep.
And
it's a core strength.
Keep doing it.
Yep. It's a core strength. That's the thing, is that when Ivy gets his shot more consistent, like Newman usually, and when Newman can finish around the rim like Ivy, they're going to be just a wrecking ball.
Check out AJ's. They got 20 beers on tap, and when you are in West Lafayette, you know where to go for Boiled Sports' favorite burger. That's AJ's. EatAJ's.com. So do you agree with my assessment? See, I think these two next year, and I don't think we need to wait after that. I think it's that soon. Give them a year together of training, lifting, whatever. It's like this fire and ice combo. Their mentality is so different, and they are such good complements to each other. I simply can't wait for that development.
I mean, and the thing we have to remember is that the rocks of this team are Trevion and Sasha, and they're both juniors.
Yeah.
And then you've got a piece like Hunter, who comes in and hits these like mid-rangers that speaking of shots that I thought were kind of put it out of range, he had that pump fake dribble into the mid range. That is a bad idea for anybody except him on this team.
Right.
And he's just money from range.
He's money, but he's not. And that's he's still not very
consistent.
Good at finishing with he's not going to do well with contact, and he doesn't shoot the three at all. Every time he shoots, I'm like, oh no. And sometimes he's absolutely, those shots are wet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most of the time, I'm like, no.
When everybody else has it going, he gives a dimension that isn't there. But the problem is, like yesterday, Hunter was the wrong kind of invisible. Hunter against Minnesota was a defensive menace.
Yeah.
But he didn't need to score offensively because Newman had it going. And Ivy was all right.
Hunter is still the leading scorer all time in the state of Indiana, correct?
It's wild. Yeah.
So this used to happen when Katie was the coach. And I can think of a specific example. I guess Link Darner was not only a great shooter in high school, but he was a cocky, great shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have a story of a friend who said he was at a game, Darner was playing, and he comes up and he was running point, shooting guard. And he comes up and he looks at the student section of the other team, splash, and then just watches them going back. I was like, Link Darner sucked when he was at Purdue. Like, what happened? Like, because to me, the ability to shoot a J in a packed gym is still the same, right? Now you've got Hunter, who's completely shifted his game to being, okay, I'm a facilitator right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure the offense runs. He really doesn't look for his shot right now.
And that's the thing. He is filling a role on the team more than he's playing to his strength. Like, he's doing what the team needs him to do.
Yeah.
To be entirely fair. And
awesome.
It's not it's not in his wheelhouse. It's not his strength. And yet he's still doing it. He's being a lockdown defender and the lead guard.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of cut him a little more slack than maybe, as a junior, he should be a little, he should be a little sharper, but he's totally not in the right, in the right position. But, back to next year, if you have Sasha coming back and looking like this, I mean, Sasha's looked incredible this year, and not just offensively, he's looked like Purdue's best wing defender, which is not something that
yesterday. We cannot discount the importance of not having him yesterday. Gosh, because they needed that so badly. We talked about it off the site again, where we were saying, man, the drop off from Newman to Thompson on defense so big because of just the simple length of the arms. Both of them get out of position all the time, right?
Yep.
But Thompson can at least Newman can at least get a hand in his face. Sasha doesn't get out of position very often.
Yeah, same thing. Morton is as young and dumb as Thompson, but
that wingspan, man.
Morton's long. And so he can, even if he's a step slow or even if he's a step in the wrong direction, the length helps. It's not like Thompson isn't long, you know what I mean? Like, he's got a long wingspan, but against a team like Maryland, like it's really tough.
I kept saying this. He weighs skinny. 160 pounds, maybe, right? He might weigh 150, 155 right now.
Yeah.
He's so skinny. And so those wide bodies on Maryland, they were just a tough matchup for him. I was very frustrated last night at the end of the game because Maryland was getting open looks over and over and over. And that I just felt like Newman would have done a better job than Thompson defensively specifically.
Maybe.
And that's the thing. We can do this all day. So here, I'm going to fight myself here. So I was frustrated with some of Painter's decisions. I was frustrated with the half court sets at the end. Specifically, it looked like they ran an ISO 2 or 3 times with Ivy as the point. I was like, man, this isn't Purdue's offense. I don't know why they're doing it. Hunter was buried in the right corner. I was like, what are they doing right now?
Yeah.
So I'm frustrated. So that's one side. The other side is the people on Twitter who seem to have given up on this team and Painter altogether because of that. This happens every loss. You and I deal with it. You hear it. I don't get it. If you're listening right now and you're one of those people, I had a guy that he thought Purdue was going to lose. Okay, fine. I thought Purdue was going to lose to Minnesota. This game, Maryland, I really didn't know where to think. but he thought they were going to lose. And then he went ahead and said, "Told you." I was like,
I don't
who
understand.
the hell do you root for? What's that?
So first of all,
I don't get it.
It's basketball. This isn't football. Good teams don't win every single game that's on their schedule. The other thing is that if you can't watch this team and have fun,
oh man,
like I don't get it. You're not watching the right.
Even in
sport.
spite of the crappy first half, like you were talking,
it was
still
bad.
it didn't lose me.
But this team is so fun to watch. Michael said it, earlier maybe last weekend, that this might be one of the most talent-rich team that Painter has had, and that is saying something. Next year
that roster
young.
is way more talented
and
than the
Trevion comes back. Trevion comes back. Sasha is coming back. You have these two tremendous power forwards, recruits that are coming in Kaufman and what's his face first. Like power forwards or centers, that are going to be there.
Have you watched Kaufman's highlights?
Yeah. Oh, he's going
to be
Vince
awesome. Edwards, but more explosive and quick.
Yeah.
What is not to like there?
And to me, first is the guy that takes over when Trevion leaves.
He plays with some anger to him, which I love. He wants to rip the rim off the glass.
Both Edey and First play with that, and it's something that Purdue, as much as Purdue has all of these 7-footers, Jawan Johnson, AJ Hammonds, even Isaac Haas, Harms, obviously, none of them ripped the rims off.
Even to the rim, they were nice.
And they were good. Yeah, exactly. They were all really nice guys. They're too nice. Edey plays with it's not mean. He just wants to. He's only interested in dunking the ball.
Yeah, he's like all of us when we're playing on an 8-foot hoop.
Yeah, which is great.
Get there however you can, right?
Yeah, and keep the ball high because you're 7'4".
Yeah,
and dunk it down. That same thing. First is smaller, obviously closer to Trevion's size, but not his girth, but his size.
Right.
And he plays with that same ferocity. Something I heard on the broadcast, they were saying that Painter says that Trevion is the best rebounder that Purdue that he has had at his program. And I'm like, are you sure about that? Are you missing a guy? Are you what? Forgetting?
So here, if you look at how they get there, right? Biggie and Trey, right? Yeah. You look how they get their rebounds. Biggie was a damn genius when it came to geometry.
Yeah.
Like he understood where the ball was coming. It was amazing. His anticipation was incredible. Trevion does it with his number one. His arms look ridiculously long, and when that ball touches his hand, it almost never gets out. He had one yesterday that surprised me, that he had two hands, but there were two Maryland guys knock the ball out, right? But generally, he makes not only rebounds, the catches he makes with the horrible entry passes.
His hands are incredible. His hands are truly incredible. And that's the thing. He is still this team's rock. I made a joke that Gillis was this year's MVP, mostly because Purdue had nobody to fill that role. Right, I didn't think that anybody was going to be kind of solidified at that power forward
thank God
spot.
He has developed that quickly, right?
And that to me is why I would still give him, the MVP, because that's value, right? If he's not there, if Trevion's not there, at least we have Edey. If Gillis isn't there to take the primary 4 spot, I don't know who does that. I don't know who does all of the things. I actually think the safest spot in the roster is going to be Mason Gillis, because he does all of those things.
Yeah.
Which is wild because we have Kaufman and we have, First coming in next year. It's going to be Trevion still and Edey. So there might be a little bit of a glut up front for at least a year, but that makes Purdue kind of the front court just tough.
Do you like my comparison? Because you didn't comment, maybe because you don't like it. Because I know you look at other teams in the NBA more than I do. Do you like the idea of Gillis becoming an Admiral Schofield type? See, to me, the size is similar. The kind of anger they play with is similar. They're intimidators, which I love at their size.
Schofield was a different level of athlete. Schofield was that kind of athlete kills Purdue every time.
Right.
I mean, like,
Right.
teams with that kind of dude, it's tough. Yeah, that's the same. That's why Illinois.
So who do you
feels
see
sus
Gillis
now.
as? I think this, to me, it's something I've been trying to wrap my head around, and people have compared him to Eifert. I'm like, I don't think that's fair to Gillis, because
No.
to me, he's a better basketball player. Eifert's
Yeah.
levels or his efforts ridiculous. Gillis has high motor,
Yeah.
and to me, his understanding is coming along.
Oh
right?
yeah.
But is there a guy that you think of right away?
Oh, no, not right away. I mean, it's just it's putty. Like, he's the guy that fills all the cracks. He does all of the, it's really good to have a guy like that on kind of every, on every team. Eifert is a little bit, I understand why people are doing that, because he's filling that role right away. But remember, he filled that role right away that Eifert got to with 4 years of experience.
Yeah.
He filled it with 0. Like, he filled it with 0 games, with 0 experience, almost right away.
Yeah.
And so that level of immediate competence, Landry comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
But even he was much more of a scorer.
Like, he played a little more laid back type of game too.
Exactly. So it's a little difficult for me.
Gillis is funny to me, because he's pretty athletic.
Yes,
but he looks like a try-hard guy too.
Yes, exactly. Which why
I love. I'm like,
that's
awesome. That's hard to get a guy to do that, I think, who's that skilled.
But the thing is, like, Painter says it and he means it. If you play like that, you're getting minutes.
Right.
If you, and I think that's also why Ivy continues to get it, because Ivy's motor doesn't wax or wane with the shot and whether the shot goes down. I mean, in that way, he's coach's kid, right?
So he's like yeah. He terrifies me. Like, I'm gonna be real honest. Just like he puts the ball on the floor, and I'm like, oh no.
Oh yeah.
What's going to happen?
It's insane.
And I keep saying he's like a baby giraffe, because you're like, the arms and the legs are going directions that shouldn't go, right? And then he finishes. You're like, what just happened? Because he all of a sudden will gather right before the hoop, right? So there's an immense amount of potential, and the coach's kid thing is real there. But at the same time, I don't think I've seen enough of what I saw last night, where he paused for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, that was a new thing, and that was very good, and it happened quickly. Now, if that stays installed in his game for the rest of the season, I think the rest of the conference is in major trouble. Like, just the people that are in Purdue's path, because I think Sash is going to take, maybe he'll take a game or two to get underneath him. But with Sash coming back, his ability to make things steady and hit that 3 when Purdue's not scoring, that's so important.
This is the everything else can be fixed. Everything else can be fixed. The biggest problem are those 4, literally, every time I write a post game, it is Purdue goes through a 4-minute stretch without scoring a field goal. It's every game.
Yeah.
And that is, they're going away from Trevion for some reason during those stretches, and they don't have kind of a go-to pairing. They don't. And to me, when that happens, Ivy's a great free throw shooter, like you were saying. Yeah. Just go to the Ivy Trevion 2-man game and see what happens.
Right.
Like, that's if you are 90 seconds without scoring, let's say 3 possessions, just go back to that. That's your bread and butter. Trevion Williams is the guy that gets buckets on this team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, Jaden Ivey is the creator. So just go back to that and rest easy. And thankfully, in the second half, it was Edey that actually got Purdue out of it. And, there was that, I think, stretch where he had, that accidental offensive rebound and put back. They ran him.
Was that the one where he turned to the outside and made that?
So that was right after. That was a baseline out of bounds where he did that kind of spin play. But that's
he lost the ball and then gathered and shot. I was like, that was impressive. And it was because that's something I didn't think he'd make early in the season.
And then he had a post hook, like a normal post hook, 3 straight possessions to Edey, and all of a sudden the offense is humming again. Especially without Sasha, Like, just get it into the 2 bucket getters. Like, Trevion went 9 for 12 yesterday, which tells me he didn't shoot nearly enough.
Right.
You know, he wasn't fed the ball nearly enough. And that is the thing to fix.
They were packing it in on them, right? I mean, that was the hard thing. Purdue's really bad at entry passes this year anyway. Yeah. And then they had 3 guys around him every time Purdue was even looking that way. So to me, if you would have had 1 or 2 guys, obviously Thompson's ability to hit a couple threes was really big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's why, Payne kept them in. But if you could have had somebody else soften that up just a little bit and make them respect it, it would
change the geometry of the floor a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there were times, there was one time where I think it was Ivy and Trevion towards the end of the game. Ivy drove, Trevion was getting in to get the rebound. And it was like 4 of Maryland's players were there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 2 double teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, and I think Trevion somehow found a way to grab the rebound, go up and get 2 shots. And then he hit both of the free throws. He did that twice yesterday, by the way. That's a big deal. Get a Purdue Great or get one with one of the military branches on there from your friends and family, or even another school. They have some other licenses. There's only one school that matters to us, though, here. GridironMetalworks.com, our pals, Purdue people. To me, if you're a Purdue fan and you're struggling with seeing the good things, even in that weird, bad loss, and I think that's a ugly, lousy loss, but you don't see the positives of the way Trevion's playing and the steps forward these freshmen are taking. And I'll go next step. I think Sash being out, there's going to be something in the long run that we learned a lot here. Right? Yeah. This is a very, very good thing.
Actually think, I kind of wrote this where it's like, I think it's better to have lost that game. That game teaches, I think, Ivy especially a lesson, especially late game. I don't know how much of it was play calling. Maybe that's why
Painter was letting him play. The bigger picture was
I often think that play calling late in games in basketball is very overrated. Mm-hmm. You put your trust. These are practice habits. You put your trust in your best players, and they have to make the decisions on the fly when they're out there. It's not like football where the quarterback is getting the call in their ear every play.
Right.
To me, that game, I hope, makes Ivy a little bit better of a decision maker. Mm-hmm. Instead of going ISO every time, it is figuring out how to, change the geometry to make the entry pass a little bit easier, or calling for the screen and hunting a matchup like Ayala was for Maryland. That's what you have to see. And again, to your point, the joy is spending the last month blowing out Minnesota, beating Ohio State and Michigan State and Indiana on the road.
Right. And going 2-4 without Sasha.
It's
2 ranked teams in that group. That's a big deal. That's
the rest of the way, Northwestern, Minnesota, Michigan,
the next 5 games,
Michigan State,
got to get some wins to me.
That's
so super important.
You've got, so Ken Pom, 3 out of the next 4 are favored to win. Okay. Penn State and Wisconsin are both 1-point toss-ups, and then the closer against Indiana at home. Hopefully that is a 50-point win. That would be great. But all of these are a ton of
asking for too much. Just a 50-point win.
But to me, I think Purdue is already, so at the beginning of the year. Again, it's always worth doing this no matter what sport you're thinking about. Go back to your expectations at the beginning of the year and calibrate what success was then to what it would be now. If you said, we saw real strides from Ivy and Newman, one other freshman, took a leap, or made a real name for themselves, and Trevion and Sasha look great, Purdue makes the tournament. That's a successful season because you're loading up.
Yeah.
Right now, I think Purdue's in. Purdue with the road win, the road conference wins.
Yeah.
It would be pretty difficult to see Purdue missing the tournament this year.
This was asked the other day. I did a live cast after the Minnesota game, and somebody asked, "Is Purdue in?" And I was like, "It's so early."
Exactly, it's early to say that.
But you're saying based on what you've seen, and same as me, right? They still have work to do. Like these next 5 games versus unranked teams, you really need to handle your business and go 3-2. Period. And I think this could be a chance. They've had a 4-game winning streak this season. If they can match that, they're in almost perfect shape.
I mean, right? if Purdue has 11 conference wins, right now we have 7 conference wins.
Right.
11 conference wins, I think it's
they're in. They're in at that point. Yeah.
That because again, we have to recalibrate because it's weird. We're not used to 16-win teams being clearly in the tournament, but it's a weird year. Right. But that's your threshold. Like getting to 15 wins means that I think you're pretty comfortably with the resume that Purdue has. I think we're pretty comfortably, in the tournament.
Yeah.
And Purdue's well on track to do that, barring a collapse. Again, if that collapse happens, then you have full right to say what the heck is going on here. But I don't see that. I don't see, I have a difficult time seeing this team doing that.
Yeah.
And so it's a success. I mean, I don't see how we are Purdue is tracking for anything other than success as we marked it early in the season.
It's funny. I was on Twitter late last night, just kind of listening.
Always a good decision.
Always good. It does nothing bad comes of it. You sleep like a baby.
It's great for the mental health.
It's really good for the mental health. What I was trying to do is watch IU comments during the Illinois game, just to hear what they said. And there's a couple IU fans that I've actually grown pretty fond of on Twitter. Martha the Mop Lady. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know.
It's hilarious though.
He's great. But he said something last night, and I wanted to share this with Purdue fans because I think it's important for perspective. At one point, IU had 4 freshmen on the floor, and I think Miller's trying to send messages.
Yeah,
they're not going the right way. But he said we've got a Purdue vibe happening right now.
Yeah.
To me, Purdue fans, you got to understand. He said, so we got Purdue energy happening. To me, that is such a huge compliment, right? I don't know if there's a bigger one that you have. Purdue, has had 4 freshmen consistently play, 5 in this group. I still have faith in Morton, a lot of faith.
Oh yeah.
I just think this guy's going to be so damn good.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, his physical ability plus his length, that's Gumby. A good combo.
Yeah.
He is Gumby, man. And his decision making, to me, he's still passing against guys that are my height. That's the problem, right? He's not passing against you. It's like when you and I were playing basketball at 2-5 World Headquarters, and you threw my shot, embedded it into the wall because I wasn't aware that, you say you're what, 6'4"? Is that 6'5"? Okay, so 6'4" and length is a problem for me because I'm 5'4" with no length. So I turned around and you threw the ball it was so horrible. But that to me is what Morton's dealing with, right? I'm used to playing Dowds, which doesn't prepare you for basketball. And my one brother's a pretty good basketball player, but I'm used to playing people that are between 5'7" and 5'4".
the cream of the crop.
Yeah, that's where you want to be on the basketball.
Exactly. Yeah, no, Morton will get there.
Yeah.
But this year, honestly, to me, we've already seen enough from Newman and Ivy and Gillis to say that,
make you slobber on
these are rotation players. These are rotation players now.
Yep.
Like next year, with another year of experience. Again, all of this is rebuilding and retooling. And if Purdue makes the tournament, looking good with a bunch of road wins, in the last 3 weeks at Indiana, at Ohio State, at Michigan State, no matter how weird Michigan State is as a team this year.
Yeah.
We're feeling good. And this is fun. The whole point is we don't get rings. Like we don't get rings if they win.
But what about all the money you pay for salaries?
I know, exactly. We get joy.
Yep.
Like if you're not watching this and feel joy when knowing that Ivy is, one of the more exciting players that you could have on your team. That Newman looks like, Etwan Moore.
Yeah,
light.
So smooth.
What I mean? Like these are fun things. We got two like ferocious centers. Like it's really fun to watch the team. It is.
You and I have talked about this a bunch, and I think one of the things that you love, I think you love the NBA draft and the NBA because you like, oh, that guy's going to be awesome, right?
Yeah.
The potential play. You like that part.
That's what we got here.
And that's where we are right now.
That's
Purdue.
what
And to me, I've been eating that part up this season because I'm like, shoot, the future is amazing. Like, it's so fun to think about next year for me. And I can't see, I don't usually get this. Like, I haven't gotten this up about a Purdue entity, meaning a basketball or a football team, since the Baby Boilers.
Probably Baby Boilers, yeah. Because
then before that, it was like the late '90s, early 2000s football teams. You're like, oh my gosh, they're going to be good again next year. Yep. Like, this is fun. 8 wins is fun, but are they going to win 100 next year? Yeah. No, they're not ever going to win 10 games, Ryan. That's something you're going to have to live with.
Exactly. A basketball national championship. That's to hold your hat on that, because that could, because that is less unrealistic than, you see Clemson.
Goodness.
You see Clemson, Ohio State, and Bama playing this different space alien sport.
Yeah, that's different speed.
The Ohio State, though, it's the kryptonite effect. But you see Alabama and the Clemson, and these other teams. Yeah. Meanwhile, you see blue bloods this year in basketball
just floundering around.
This is what I would say. Purdue fans, regardless of your opinion, anybody's opinions on the pro path to the pros, to compensations, to any of this. Advocating for an easier path or a quicker path or an academy path to the NBA, or like the secondary option, G League option. So whether you're going to the draft as an 18-year-old or you're going to the G League, getting paid, and then hopping to the NBA, like, Purdue fans should be rooting for that, because you're seeing it this year. Yeah. Kentucky, Duke, all of these teams that all of a sudden relied on, freshman talent to come in and buoy them based on the level of excellence that these players genuinely are struggling with this kind of a shadow of this reality. Meanwhile, Purdue is young, but they're the kind of young where you have these really good players that fit like Lego pieces together. And then you have age that is anchoring them. These are the kind of teams. You look up and down at the top 25, and that is what, it's the combination of kind of these athletic young players with these sound, that's, Baylor, Gonzaga, Michigan, like Iowa.
Did you see how many seniors Wisconsin? Am I right about this? Don't they have 6 seniors on their roster?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. No wonder they're good. That's incredible. In this era, that is just nuts.
So to me, these are the kind of thing, the way that Painter builds his team, at least in the short term, as the traditional blue bloods are transitioning, like figuring out how to transition to kind of this new reality, Gonzagas of the world are thriving. It looks like Michigan has already figured it out. Man. Juwan Howard,
terrifying.
They're awesome. There's nothing to say.
Their roster's stronger next year.
Oh yeah. So that's, to me, there is competition in the Big Ten, but it comes from Michigan. Right. It doesn't come from Michigan State or Ohio State or whatever. Michigan is back up at the top. Yep. And so, that's who Purdue should be, aiming at. Meanwhile, Dickinson, the Dickinson and Trevion battle next year is going to be wild.
You don't think Dickinson's gone? I think he's gone.
I don't know. It's a weird draft this year, and I'm not entirely sure what anybody's going to do.
He's proven to everybody he's so good. I have been writing him notes telling him to go pro anonymously. Putting perfume on him. Hi, I am big female agent. Basketball fan. I am agent. Yeah, different perspective.
Hello, it is agent.
It is me, agent. Again, see you soon. Hugs and kisses.
It's, I mean, you know, and Garza is gone, so I was going to take a little bit of a dip.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Cockburn, DeSamu are both gone, right?
I don't know about Illinois. I don't think DeSamu is gone. I think Illinois.
I think he will be gone because people said he was close last year. I think he will be gone, especially since they haven't taken the leap that I think he thought they would. I think
they should. They should. For some reason, they're stumbling. But anyway, like they're still an excellent team. It's funny because Archie was hired in the same summer that Brad Underwood was hired, and it's
the difference in program.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild how not well Archie is working and how
look at they have something that defines them. Illinois does. Now they're tough. So, well, this has been a fun conversation. Maybe we can do it again in the next week if the weird schedules allow. Maybe you guys can have a traditional basketball beat. We can do it. I don't know. Everything's fluid.
Everything's in flux at the World Sports headquarters, just it is in the rest of the world. But we'll do our best. We're
reacting. So appreciate you tuning in today, and Aneesh, I appreciate you putting aside time in daylight hours to record this handsome basketball beat hour. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, guys. I love you. Have a good afternoon.
Good day.
This is the Basketball Beat.